Choosing a wedding photographer isn't about just liking a few photographs on Instagram. It's about trust. The person that you choose to photograph your wedding is going to be around you and your friends all day. So you need to feel relaxed around them. You need to feel relaxed around them from the very first interaction that you have. I'm going to take you through this video through a few things that you might want to consider when it comes to finding the perfect photographer. Because a photographer is like a cake. They come in all different shapes and sizes and flavors, have loads of different styles, and everybody does everything differently, and everybody communicates differently and vibes with different people. And I think it's really, really important to find that person who ultimately you can trust, and somebody that gives you the confidence that, you know, when they turn up on your wedding day, they're not going to be a complete stranger, and you're not going to be worried about if they're in the right spot or if they're getting what you need, because they should know. As a professional wedding photographer myself, it's really important for me to understand what it is you want, because at the core of my business is results, you know, getting the results for you. This isn't about style, it's about trust. So I'm going to go through a few things in this video which hopefully you'll find helpful, because I understand how intimidating it can be when you start looking for a wedding photographer, and you know, you might make a post on one of the wedding groups and within 5 minutes you have 100 responses and a lot of websites to go through and a lot of information. So here are some of the core things to look out for when you are looking for your wedding photographer, because it is a very important part of the day, and it's an important part of the rest of your life, because you will be looking at these photographs for the rest of your lives. When everything else is gone, the images will remain. So you need to be happy with those. And that starts now. It starts in the finding process. It starts in the conversations that you're going to have and the questions that you're going to ask your photographers to make sure that they are the right fit for you. So let's get started with how you communicate with a photographer. So initially, you're probably going to send out a few quick messages just to see if that person's available. And then you kind of want to be looking at how quickly do they respond and how do they respond. Is it in a way that you find reassuring and relaxing, or is it kind of nice and snappy and, you know, just very, very to the point? So the questions you need to really be asking yourself is, does this person make me feel relaxed? Can you be yourself around them? Because in these early stages, you can get quite a lot of information from a photographer, which will give you a good understanding as to whether they're the right fit or not. Do they make you feel calm? Do they listen? Are they just talking at you and telling you what they want? Or are they trying to get information from you to really understand what it is you want from the results? Because we are all different, and what you might have in your mind from the end results might be very different to what the photographer thinks. So it's important to see if they're actually retaining that information, and ask yourself, are you confident that they get you, that they understand what it is that you want? And also, can you picture this person around your friends and family? Because I go to many weddings and we are in the middle of your most important day all day long. Sometimes from more intimate moments when you're getting ready with your family, to the actual ceremony itself, where we can be quite close and we are going to be around your friends. We will be mingling. I specialize in natural photography. Now, that doesn't mean that I slip into the background like a ninja. I'm not getting involved, as in, you know, come together and give us a big smile. But I do need to create some sort of relationship with yourselves and your friends and your family, because the more relaxed they are around me, the more relaxed they'll be in front of the camera and they'll even forget that I'm there. Now, I think that is the real key to getting natural images, is it's not being invisible, it's being part of the day in a discreet kind of way. And usually by the end of the day, I've made quite a few friends and people come up to me and say, "We're going now, Scott, see you later." Because I've put a lot of effort in from the word go to build those connections. So they almost forget that I'm a photographer and sometimes just see me as a guest. And that way I can get really good results because they're not sort of looking in the side of their eye thinking, "Oh, there's the photographer." And sometimes I find those people who, they're not quite comfortable around cameras, and that definitely goes for the bride and groom. And in these early stages of finding a photographer, if that person can help you be relaxed in the early stages, when the day comes, you're not going to be as tense, you're not going to be as stiff, and you're going to be able to just be relaxed and calm, which is how you should be on your wedding day. The whole purpose of my job and every other supplier that you find, you need confidence that that person knows exactly what they're doing and they can make you relax. Because if you don't, you're going to be worried about, is the band going to turn up on time? Is the food going to be as good as we're expecting? Is the photographer going to be capturing those moments that we're expecting them to capture? So yeah, start paying attention to those things early on, and hopefully it'll sort of guide you towards finding the right person for you. Because if it feels chaotic before you've paid them, I can assure you that's probably not going to get better. So maybe do yourself a favor and put the time in now to find that right person for you. Section 2, do you like their style? And if so, what do you like about their style? There's many different styles of photography. You have everything from candid / the natural side of things, which I do, but that isn't always what people want. And I'm not just trying to sell my services here, because that's not the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this channel is for you to get what you want and the results that you desire. Some photographers lean more into your big magazine style stuff, where you're going to get those big epic shots with all the setup lighting, and you're going to be in a position with the lights and everything's sort of absolutely perfect. But you just need to consider that all of that stuff takes time. There's a lot of equipment involved, and the timings around light and when you can do things are super important. So you need to ask yourself, is this your wedding or is it a photo shoot? Because if you want to be getting dragged away for a big list of group shots and a big couple of hour long session of just getting everything right, so you've got those big shots, then perfect. I mean, that is for you, and that is what you've decided that you want. But just be aware that on the day, when it is your wedding day, which is going to go really fast, that this photographer has a job to do, and they will have to take you away at certain times when you might be having a dance or having a really good chat with someone you've not seen for a long time. And the group shots can take a long time, especially when it comes to rounding people up and getting essentially a load of people the photographer doesn't know into one space and lots of different combinations. And that can take time. And I've seen on numerous occasions when maybe a couple has given me a list which is a little bit longer than I've recommended, that after 3 or 4 of those group things, they kind of want to be somewhere else, talking to someone else and just relaxing and enjoying the day. So from a style point of view, you need to decide, do you want to be just enjoying your day and somebody capturing all of the little details? Or are you looking for something where you want very specific photographs? There's very different photographers for those things. If you get a photographer that's more natural and candid and you give them a massive list, a couple of things are going to happen. One, you're going to miss quite a bit of your day. And two, the photographer, if they are a natural kind of photographer, they're going to be missing a lot of shots during that time where they're doing something that isn't necessarily a big part of their skill set, and they're missing out on all those natural little moments of people having a laugh, having a giggle. And personally, and I can only speak because this is my style, that's kind of what my couples really enjoy. But there are different couples out there for different things, and I completely get that. So I'm not taking anything away from those photographers that do go out their way to make these big shots, because it is a style within itself. So when you look at their style, you need to be asking, do I like the dark and moody style, or is it light and airy? Is it big flash photography, which has a style of its own? Myself personally, I don't, or I try not to use a flash if I don't have to. And with modern day cameras these days, you can turn the clicker off. So I'd be asking my photographers if they would be using a flash and a clicker, especially during ceremonies and speeches, because I've been at weddings myself, and even funerals, where the photographer doesn't necessarily have the gear that's capable of working in low light conditions, and it doesn't have the ability to turn the clicker off. Now, usually, without going into too much technical detail, you've got mirrored cameras, which rely on a moving part, which creates the clicking sound of the mirror moving. And you've got mirrorless, which it can click, and a lot of it is aesthetic, but you can turn the clicker off. So when you're saying your vows and going through these really important moments, you're not having big flashes and big clicks, because I personally find it really distracting, and it's not really essential in this day and age to be distracting. Like, it's not my job to come to your wedding and distract from the most important bit, which is your ceremony and your speeches, which is the most important parts, because it's what is said. It's what is said during these moments, which is your wedding. Obviously, you've got the dancing, you've got the party, but at the core of it all, and the most important thing, is your wedding. It's those sacred moments that you are going to cherish forever. And the last thing you want is to be taken out of that moment by clicks and flashes. But that is just my opinion on that, and I'm quite firm on it. But that is up to you. But it's a really good question to be asking your photographers at that stage. So if you've seen a few photographs on Instagram and you like that, I really recommend digging into the website even more and having a look at galleries and have a look at the early stages and how their style has developed through the day. Is it what you're looking for? Does this work for you? Could you imagine yourself in these photographs? So if you come across someone that you really like, but it's like maybe £100 more than the other person, but you're not quite 100% set, what I would say is, in 10 years' time, that £100 won't be that important, but the photographs will. So I know it seems maybe expensive sometimes when you look at wedding photography and wedding photographers, but there's a good reason for why people charge what they do, which is based on lots of things like gear and experience and the service that they provide. But I'd be asking what the service is and asking, about the gear. Why are they charging? That's a whole different video, which I'm going to do, which is going to break down the whole cost of a wedding photographer, just so that one figure that you see, like £1,500, which looks like a huge amount for one day's work, but it's not just one day's work, and it's a lot of gear and a lot of investment. So I want to take that figure, which looks like something that is slightly pulled out the air maybe if you don't know what you're looking for, and make that a little bit more tangible so you can actually see why it costs what it does. And hopefully that'll just give you a little bit more reassurance, because if something's too cheap as well, I'd have to ask, what cameras are they using? Are they insured? Do they have proper processes around backing up your images? And what is the delivery? What is the delivery times? Because if it's too cheap, I'd be asking myself, is this a weekend job? And if it's a weekend job, how much priority are you actually taking within that? So that is something to consider, and something that I'll go over in later videos. Which leads me on to section 3, which is practical questions to be asking. Because there's some questions that I think you really need to be asking just to give you the confidence to actually go ahead and book this. And my job is all about trust. If you can't get that feeling of trust early on, then, maybe you need to be asking a few more questions, because that trust isn't going to disappear. It's going to get worse as time goes on. So here's a few things to consider asking your photographer when you have that initial meeting. So like I mentioned in the previous section, I'd be asking them, do they have two cards in the camera? Because most modern cameras have two slots, and I put a card in each, and it dual writes to each card, because these SD cards, they do corrupt from time to time. I mean, I've invested in software which can access these things, but if that photographer doesn't have that or have the know-how to be able to rescue your images if it's been lost, then you could lose a day's worth of images, and that's not good. So for the sake of the photographer's investment or lack of investment, you want to make sure that they're dual recording, so they have two cards in each camera at all times. So it's backed up. This is for everybody's safety, because the photographer would be mortified if they lost photographs, and you would be mortified if you lost one of those cameras, because usually you've got one camera which is for close-up work and one which is wide. So at either point you can be wide or you can be close-up. If I lost one of my cameras, I'm losing some really important detail there. And really massive shots, like a big wide shot of a first kiss or a big close-up of your mum crying, those images are gone. And if they go, it's not good. So I'd be asking, how are they backing up their images? Do they back up halfway through the day? I personally back up halfway through the day when I get a chance when people are eating. And then the moment I get home, I back all the images up straight to my computer. So I've technically got 3 points of backup there. So if one fails, your images are safe. Another important question is, are they insured? So the insurance will cover things like what happens if they're not there, what happens if they fall ill, what happens if they lose the images. So every photographer should have public liability insurance. So I would be asking, do you have public liability insurance? And if they and are, I'd be questioning how much thought they've put in to their business, because it is absolutely fundamental to have that. Another thing is, ask them if they have a contract, because you really want to be going into this with a contract. This is a business deal. It's not only a business deal, it's a contract between two people where things can go wrong. Things can go wrong from your side, i.e., heaven forbid, the wedding doesn't go ahead for whatever reason. Or the photographer, like I said, could be ill or might not be able to turn up. I've had a few close calls where I've not necessarily been very well, as is possible when we're human. But I've got big backup things in line. The moment I wasn't feeling well, I'd contacted two photographers to find their availability who have a very, very similar style to me, because I have a network of photographers around me that are very good at the job, just in case I'm not available. So I would be finding out if they've got a contract, which you can read. Have a look at the contract before you pay any money, because there will be bits in there about what happens to your deposit, as most photographers do take a deposit, because deposits keep things solid. We need to protect ourselves from couples booking, filling a date in a diary, and then maybe changing their mind, or something happens and then that date in our diary is now empty, which can be a problem, because we go to a lot of effort to fill our diaries. So to have things taken away isn't good. So the contract is there to protect you, and it's to protect the photographer. So have a good look through there, and if there's anything in there that you disagree with, have a chat, have a conversation, because you should be able to talk to your photographer. I personally have set up a WhatsApp group with the couple in straight away. So if they have any questions whatsoever about anything, they can drop me a quick WhatsApp and I'll answer that almost instantly, which I think just sets a bit of reassurance and a little bit of trust. So contract, make sure there is a contract for everybody's sake, please. So this takes us on to section 4, which is the delivery of the images. And I'll talk about some logistics of that as well, the logistics of the photographer and some extra costs that might come with that. So you want to be asking your photographer, how are the images being delivered after the wedding? Now, some photographers will provide a few pictures on the day, like I do, and that is mostly for social media, and that is for family members or friends that might not have been able to make it, because if you get images from like your Auntie Joan, who is instantly putting them all over Facebook, then that's the first image that people outside of your wedding will see of your wedding, which isn't always, well, it isn't going to be the quality that photographers will provide. So find out if you're going to be getting a few of those images on the day or the day after, just to make sure that you're covered and what's going out from your wedding. And it's okay to also ask your guests, please don't post any photographs of our wedding until we have. It's a common courtesy, but it happens all the time where you see these dreadful pictures being posted, and it can upset the couples. It's their day, it's their vision. They paid a lot for a photographer, so feel free to just kindly ask people, or get your celebrant to ask, please do not take photographs, because photographs I have to edit out loads of camera phones down the aisle when I'm taking first kiss photographs, and my photograph or a photographer's photograph will be better, and that photograph that somebody's taken could end up all over the internet, and it's the first view that people get of your wedding. It's okay to ask people not to photograph during ceremonies and during key moments. I'd also be asking your photographer how they are going to be delivering the images. So is it going to be on a memory stick? Is it going to be in a book? Is it going to be through lots of prints? Or most commonly, it's going to be something like a Google Drive, where they will upload all of the high-res images for printing, and they will give you a link where you can view and download all the images. Now, I would really recommend on that point, when you get your images, to download them straight away and put them in 2 places. So if you lose a memory stick, or a memory stick breaks, you've always got another copy somewhere else. So don't really rely on your photographer keeping your images forever, because it costs a lot of money to store images, and it should be in your contract, and it's a question that you want to be asking your photographers. What do you do with the images? How long do you keep them? But realistically, it is your responsibility as your images and something you've purchased to look after that, put them somewhere safe, and they'll last forever if you do that. And nothing needs to go missing, because the anxiety of losing images, I think I've got about 5 different backups from my wedding, just in case something happens. I've got them in the cloud, I've got them on memory sticks, I've got them on external hard drives. You don't want to lose your images, and you need to find out whose responsibility that is, because after a certain amount of time, it won't be the photographer's, and if they lose them, then it's going to really hurt. So yeah, check that out. Another thing to ask your photographer is, what about re-edits? What happens if you get a collection of photographs and you're not overly happy with the edit style? Now, is your photographer going to re-edit your photographs for free, or is that going to come at a cost? Now, this should also be in the contract, so it's an important question to ask. If I don't like my photographs, what do I do? Now, usually, if you like the image, but you don't like the edit, if somebody came to me and said, I love the image, but I don't like what you've done with the color, then I have a set amount of time that I can give to re-edit those images, which is only fair. Although from my experience in the past, I tend to deliver the whole gallery nice and clean in my style. And then I duplicate images and I'll apply an edit which I think looks good. So even if you don't like the edit that I think looks good, you've always got the full image, high-res image, which can be edited in different styles. So find out from your photographer what the process would be if you have a collection of images, because you don't want a batch of images that you don't like and then your photographer said it's going to be £100 an hour and I'll fix all these, because I don't think that's fair. I think you should get what you need, and you will get what you need by having that conversation with the photographer and then fully understanding, if they've listened, to what your desires and needs are with the results. There's a few other additional costs that it's worth speaking to your photographer about, like travel. Is your photographer coming from 200 miles away? Is there going to be a cost for that? Because if someone's charging £1,200 for a wedding package 2 miles away or 200 miles away, it's quite an expense in time and financial cost for that photographer. So make sure in your contract that there are no additional charges, but you should get a quote from your photographer to outline all of the costs. There should be no after cost. There might be additional things like if you want an extra book, or if you want like a highlight reel to music of your choice, is what I provide to my couples. Then that's either included early on or additional. Sometimes I go to weddings and, like, as I've mentioned in other videos, they've not necessarily thought about their schedule enough, and they'll have things so tight that they're trying to save some money, and they've booked me for 4 hours, but everything's got delayed and everything's late, and the 4 hours comes up and actually I am just about ready to leave. That's my 4 hours up. I'm contracted 4 hours. It doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily pack up my gear and just burst out the door. But what it does mean is, can you buy another hour? So ask your photographer, if things overrun, can I purchase another hour just in case things go awry? And hopefully you can. I personally don't book anything after a wedding, so I'm never rushing off. Your wedding day is your wedding day, whether you book me for 2 hours, 3 hours, or whatever. That day is booked out for me, which, just on a side note, is why, a 2 hour, 3 hour package might cost this, it might cost a similar amount to a full package, because it still takes up a full day. So if you are looking for a small day, it might even be better value for money if you go for something a little bit longer and maybe get some of those earlier shots or some of those later on party shots, just for value of money, if anything else. And also, another really good question to ask, if you found the perfect photographer but they are 200 miles away, ask them how they plan to be on time, because one of my biggest anxieties is being late for weddings, which I've never done because I'm always really early for everything. But that comes at a cost. If it's 200 miles away, I need to factor in traffic jams. I need to factor in, if my car breaks down, how can I get from, Birmingham to Bristol in 2 hours, which would involve a taxi, which would involve logistics. So I need lots of time. So ask your photographer, how do you plan on being on time? If they're 2 miles down the road, they're going to be fine. If they're 200 miles away, there's lots of things which are out of your control and out of their control, which could mean they might turn up late. So I would check that. Section 5 is all about eating and food. And I know that this is mentioned quite a lot in the wedding groups, is, do we feed our photographers? And I suppose the real answer is, it's up to you. I understand as a photographer that the food expense at a wedding, and we'll go all into budgeting and food costs and all of that kind of things in a different episode. But I understand that wedding food is expensive. And although most of my couples do feed me or offer to feed me and sit me at a table and give me food, I know that that's not always what the couples want. But what we need to remember is, we're all human, and we're going to be on our feet for 10 hours and we need a break. and we need to eat. So the questions you need to ask yourself is, am I going to feed my photographer? If not, that needs to be spoken about before your wedding to make sure that they are aware that they need to either bring their own food. And if they do bring their own food, you need to be thinking they need to eat it. They need to be away from the cameras for half an hour and have a break, which is only fair. Now, there are natural points in the day where a photographer would have a break, and usually that's when people are eating, because you never really get a great photograph of somebody eating. But you don't want to be your photographer to be missing when you have a big moment coming up. But we do need to have a break, and we do need to eat. It is appreciated if we do get food, because it saves us having to prepare and plan and bring food. So it is appreciated, but also understanding the cost of that to yourselves is also appreciated from our perspective. So have the conversation before and make sure that everybody's clear on breaks and eating, because it needs to happen. Section 6 is deposits and payment structure. So all photographers will take a deposit, and for a good reason. If it's in the diary, a deposit is taken, so that date in the diary can't be taken away so easily, because we go to a lot of effort to fill our diaries. And if someone could just easily take that out of the diary, it means we are now no longer working that day, and it's incredibly more difficult to fill a date in the diary when it's closer to the date. So in your contract, it will state what the payment structure is. So usually you'll take a deposit, and most photographers take a 50% deposit. And there's a reason for this. It's because during the winter and quieter months, that's usually when they're taking a lot of the bookings. So we can't just have income coming in just through summer. We need that income to be rolling in all year round. So deposits fill in that gap and create some sort of stable income, which can be very difficult in this profession. But it should be in your contract. So a 50% deposit will secure your date. I'd be asking, what happens if our date changes, or what happens if the wedding, unfortunately, is not going ahead? What happens to the deposit? When do I need to pay the final amount? It's usually before the wedding. I don't know any photographer that would be happy to accept full payment after the wedding, because it just adds a whole layer of administration for ourselves if we need to start chasing couples. And to be honest, once the wedding is done and you've paid for the wedding and the wedding's happened and it's over, like, you don't want all these additional costs that are still lurking over you, and we don't want to be chasing them. So check your contract and be very, very aware of the pricing, how money is taken, when it's taken, and what happens to the money if something in the contract changes, like the photographer can't turn up or you can't go ahead with the wedding. So be very, very clear on these things and make sure it's all in writing. So that's it. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. Choosing the right photographer is not easy, but I hope this has given you a little bit more information to be able to drill down deeper into some of the pictures that you've seen on Instagram and get behind the person behind it. They're a business. Get behind their business processes and make sure that that makes you feel comfortable, because choosing your photographer comes down to this. Do I trust them? Do you feel confident that they're going to turn up on time and have listened and will deliver exactly what you want? And if the answer is yes, you've probably found the right one. If this has helped, please like this video and subscribe, because I want this to get out to as many couples as possible, because I think it's going to be really helpful for people and take away a lot of the stress. I've got lots of other videos which go into other logistical side of things or other photography side of things, We're also going to be visiting venues, and even though it might not be the venue that you're choosing, it'll get you thinking about what to look for. I'm also going to be running live questions and answers when I've got enough subscribers, so you can start to ask some of those questions that might be burning on your mind, and hopefully I can answer them with my experience. But until then, try and have fun, because it can be